think we all sometimes feel a little bit dry or uninspired at work. Maybe there's some brain fog going on. We don't quite know how to get out of it. And we also feel like a piece of ourselves is missing, because as witches, as mystics, as anyone who is into spirituality, sometimes our spirituality doesn't play a role in our work life. And I want to change that today and talk to you about the difficulties that you may have with bringing magic into your workplace, the ideas that I have for helping that. I have some low-key ideas and some higher-key ideas, and I also want to talk about why it could be helpful to bring witchiness into your muggle job and to get your witch on at work, basically. So of course, I want to preface this by saying that whether you work at a cafe, in an office, or at a strip club, this is going to look a little bit different depending on where you're at. Personally, I have the most experience with office work and bringing spirituality into that, but I'm sure this will also be valid for other jobs and you can tailor it to your needs. So first of all, I want to speak about why we would want to bring magic into. So firstly, I want to speak about why we would want to bring magic into our office job or witchcraft into our office job. For me personally, I feel very often that a piece of me is missing if I don't fully bring every part of me, and that includes my spirituality, that includes my witchcraft, to a place wherever I go. And of course, we are all kind of striving to be more authentic. So not only can it help with feeling more authentic at work, but it can also help you tackle some of the issues that you may have at your workplace. Something like struggles with coworkers, or feeling like you're in a brain fog, feeling unproductive. All of that magic can help with if you let it be in that space. So now let me talk about the difficulties that a lot of us have with this. It will help to pinpoint which ones of these pertain to you. So feel free to put them in the comments as well if you have other difficulties, and just kind of hone in on what the trouble is, why you don't want to bring your magic into your muggle job. So the first thing I want to say is, of course, this is going to be very individual again, depending on whether you work at a cafe, a strip club, an office, wherever you work, outside, in a restaurant. But I think a lot of these will have something in common. So the first thing that I want to say is that in a corporate office environment, or in any sort of environment where you wear something like a uniform or a literal uniform, of course, the self-expression of fashion is taken away from you. So that is one of the difficulties, because a lot of the time as witches, as spiritual people, we do want to express our spirituality by wearing pentagrams, or maybe by wearing black clothing if we are into that, by wearing lace if we are a little bit of a goth witch, you know what I mean? And you can't do that if your environment does not permit that. So having that self-expression taken away is the first difficulty that I see, but it's not the worst, and we're going to figure out how to get around that, sort of. Then, secondly, I want to talk about hierarchy, because sometimes we just do not feel like it is our place to bring spirituality into an office setting or into any sort of work environment, because we are kind of low on the ladder and we don't want to seem cuckoo to our bosses or whatever. That is why I have some low-key ideas to practice magic or practice witchcraft in the office as well, so that not everyone will notice. Then you also might not want your spirituality to be touched by your work, because for some of us, spirituality may be something sacred. It may be something that we only engage with in private, in the safety of our own homes. I do want to say that I think it is a very limiting belief to think that it is sacred and thus we cannot bring it into work or cannot bring it into our everyday life. And I feel like that comes from a time of institutionalized religion where they did forbid every sort of practice that you could do secretly at home because they didn't have control over it. So they needed to forbid it. And I feel like some people have maybe kind of carried that with them and thought like, okay, this is sacred. I can only do it in certain places, in certain settings. And I feel like widening your perspective can be helpful. Maybe you have valid reasons for not bringing your spirituality into work. That is completely fine as well. Then the next thing are close-minded coworkers or people that we have to work with, like clients or customers. Now, of course, there's not much to be said here. You just kind of have to be low key. But sometimes I do want to say you will be surprised how accepting some people can be of this stuff, even if you don't really expect it of them. And then it might be an issue as well that you literally have no human contact. Maybe you have no coworkers. Maybe you work alone at home. Maybe your coworkers don't speak to you because you're all in your little cubicles. Maybe you don't have customers, you know. So this can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing, and we'll get to how we can work around that in just a little bit when I talk about the ideas. So assuming you can't set up a full-on altar with incense burning and read cards for your coworkers, here are my low-key ideas that you could bring into the workplace to get your witch on at work and to sort of be a little bit of a corporate witch, depending on where you work, and magic up your muggle job. So the first thing I want to talk about is the low-key things that are secretive, that are kind of just for yourself. For me, if you write any sort of text, this has worked wonders. It's very, very fun. If you create any content like blogs or newsletters, or even if you just have to write protocols or emails, a very valid way of engaging with your witchiness is to draw a tarot card to help you with that. For example, if you are writing an email and you don't know how you should start, you don't know whether you should bring your emotions into it or how you should structure it, you could draw some tarot cards to help you with that. For me, I sometimes write blog posts or newsletters at work, and for sure, drawing a card will inspire me to hone in on what I want to communicate and how I want to communicate it to our readers. So this may be feasible for you whenever you have to write any sort of text, even if it's a seemingly factual text. Tarot cards can still help. And I'm not asking you to bust out your deck at your desk. For something as practical as this, I do suggest just pulling the card online and being inspired there. Of course, that's something none of us or a lot of us wouldn't do in our personal practice because we want the physical cards. We feel like we need them, you know. If you do it online in your personal practice, that is fine as well. But I feel like with something as practical as office work, you can just draw it online and be inspired by the meaning of that card. The second thing I want to suggest as a low-key practice is to set yourself challenges for each day of the week. For example, I sometimes set myself the challenge of seeing the moon at least once a day. Now, that is going to be hard if it is daylight, but that is what makes it fun. It makes me take a walk, see if I can find the moon in the sky. I engage with my environments, I connect with nature, and that is a very helpful challenge. Then secondly, you could also set yourself a challenge to wear something a little bit crazy at work. What I do like to do is to put on jewelry that has a lot of meaning for me. So I take a minute in the morning to figure out what piece of jewelry will give me what I need. Do I need confidence? Do I need to stay calm? Do I need to be creative today? Do I need to find the right words, be communicative? And depending on that, I will choose a piece of jewelry. You could also do a crystal or a tarot card that you take with you and keep with you to represent that. It kind of makes the day feel like it belongs to you a little bit more. Another challenge you could do is to meditate in the bathroom for a minute or 2 minutes if you feel overwhelmed. And what I do like to do, because there's only so many challenges you can think of out of the blue, I sometimes like to draw 5 cards, one for each workday, at the beginning of the week and pay very close attention to what the characters are doing in the cards, and then do whatever they are doing at the workplace. So depending on what deck you have, depending on what tarot or oracle you work with. You can also use oracle cards with words as inspiration, or you can just use tarot cards and kind of make up a challenge around what the people are doing. For example, the whole finding the moon thing was inspired by me drawing the moon card and trying to make a challenge out of that in a very practical way. Then another low-key thing is to set yourself a daily theme and tune into a daily theme. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You could do this by looking at where the moon is at, what zodiac sign it is in. You could also draw a daily card as a theme. You could look at planetary positions in general, or even just look on Instagram for one inspiring quote. Not flood yourself with a lot of quotes, but just pick one. And through that, it really helps you to tune into being able to see how that energy represents itself throughout your day. So try just finding a daily theme and seeing how it is represented and how you can also represent it outside of yourself throughout the day, at the office, at the cafe, at the club, wherever you work. Now, let us get to the more high-key exercises that include other people or can include other people and are a little more obvious. So the first thing I want to suggest is that you make up a magical word or a tiny little spell. A word is probably best, a single word, and you use it throughout the day. It can have a certain intention behind it, or it's just a word that you like, and you make it a challenge for yourself to use it in customer communication, when you're on the phone with clients, or even just with your coworkers. It's a little fun, secretive thing. So it's not quite as high key as the other things I'm going to suggest, but still, it will make your day feel a little bit more interesting if you meet someone in the break room and you know that you have to use that word. It's kind of a playful challenge to help you make your day feel more interesting. The next sort of high-key practice I have is drawing runes on your skin to support yourself. Now, depending on where you put the rune, obviously, people may notice it and may ask you about it. For me, I usually put it right here, but since people know I write a lot of stuff on my wrists anyway, they usually don't ask me about it, and I'm fine with that because it's kind of a private thing. But if you kind of want to dabble in telling your coworkers about your spirituality, you may draw a symbol there and they may ask you, and then maybe you can talk to them about it. This is something that can be awkward potentially. That is why it's a high-key practice. So think about whether you want to bring that into your workplace or not. And then another high-key thing is some everyday magic that you can just include in your day when communicating with clients or your coworkers. One of the things you can bring magic into other people's days is by bringing food that has certain herbs in it, maybe. You could even take some orientation from where the planets are at, where the moon is at, and bring according herbs or seasonal foods to kind of tune into nature and help others tune into nature as well. Then you could give compliments to people, maybe compliments about their character, compliments about their looks. That is a form of magic as well. You could also, if people ask you for advice, dish out some slightly spiritual advice so they kind of know that something is up in your life and you're a little bit spiritual, a little bit witchy, a little bit of a mystic. And also you could, of course, share resources with them that kind of make it obvious that you're into that sort of stuff. So if they have a question for you, or if they need advice from you privately, or maybe even work advice, then you could send them a witchy resource, like a witchy YouTube video, a witchy blog article. Send them your favorite witchy YouTubers, your favorite witchy writers, and see how they react to that maybe, or not even see how they react. Just give it to them, let them know that you're kind of into that stuff, and take the opportunity to make it more obvious that you are a little bit of a witch, basically, a little bit magical. And then you can also, if you're into physical exercises, of course, teach your coworkers relaxation exercises oriented, like pointed towards yoga, for example. At the same time, a lot of people who are into this aren't entirely spiritual, but I feel like it is kind of the first sign that someone isn't quite a muggle if they are into yoga or something and they have the certain spiritual attitude behind it. So let us make the comments very interesting. Write down there what you like to do at work to make it a little bit more witchy, or if you want to try any of these. I'm also going to link some other videos, easy witchcraft practices, etc. below. And since this is about authenticity, I also real quick want to say that in September, if you watch this at the time of upload, my Patreon journaling prompts are going to be about authenticity in general and also authenticity in the workplace. So I will leave a link to that down below. I thank you so much for supporting me and being here, and I wish you the greatest of days. I'll see you very, very soon.